Hi. So just like with the Big Brother video that I uploaded before, I double checked with my managers to make sure this isn't struck work and I'm not doing anything wrong. So let's talk about 90 Day Fiancé before the 90 days, talking about David and Sheila. So I'm not into the whole 90 Day Fiancé thing as much as other people are, but I do have a tradition where if I'm in a hotel, 90 Day Fiancé is the one show that I want to watch. I don't know why, there's just something about watching it in a hotel that just makes it so much better. So I feel like if I watch it anywhere else, I'm like, this is weird. So I found out that on the spinoff before the 90 days, there's a deaf contestant on this show. I don't remember how I found this out. I think I was on Facebook and he just popped up and they were talking about him, this guy named David. And so I got a free trial to some other platform, some other streaming platform, because apparently the show wasn't on Hulu anymore. And so as I was watching the first episode that he's on, I recognized something. Guy's from Omaha. I was like, why does that background look so familiar? And then I saw the orange playground that's at Jinglihi. And before they even said he's from Omaha, I went, oh hell, this guy's from Omaha. So David is a deaf man who met a woman named Sheila who is from the Philippines, and lo and behold, they start falling for each other. They get into a little long distance relationship. I know this all too well, being that all of my relationships have been long distance. Not anymore though. And then usually in 90 Day Fiancé, the non-American will fly over to the United States, and that's when they get engaged and start that whole process. However, before the 90 days, the American is going to the other country. So now David is going to fly to the Philippines to meet Sheila, and then they're gonna do that whole, starting the engagement process for 90 days. Here's the thing, of course, David is deaf, but he seems to be, from what I've seen, signing only deaf person. Whereas someone like me, I grew up mainstream and mostly with spoken English. As you can tell, that's what I'm doing right now. And, signing is like more in casual conversation than in person because I'm clunky. I'm not the point of this. David uses ASL for his primary mode of communication, and when he's out and about, typically he's typing on his phone and showing it to like the bartenders and things like that. You see that when he goes to the bar and he's talking about how he's gonna go fly over and meet Sheila, and he's typing with the bartender, and then the bartender is doing like voice to text on his phone. Perfectly good method of communication when you're not, with someone for so long. Here comes the problem now. Sheila, the girlfriend, is hearing, doesn't know ASL. So a Patreon supporter has brought it to my attention that Sheila is actually hard of hearing. Anytime that I say Sheila is hearing, just pretend I'm now saying she's a non-signing person or a person who doesn't use ASL. The conversation is going to be a little more confusing and all over the place now, but still a bit of the same. But now that we all know this, work with me here, I'm sorry. And that's usually normal when it comes to deaf hearing relationships. Usually the hearing person doesn't know ASL or sign language of whatever country right off the bat. So usually when things like this happen, it goes in various ways. One, the hearing person will, start to learn sign language. Nobody's expecting anybody to be fluent so quickly. These things take time. Learning a language takes time. The point is the effort, right? Or the person is not going to bother at all. I have experience with both of these situations. And as it turns out, these two have been talking for like 2 years, I want to say, and you find out that she really doesn't know any ASL at all. So there was a clip that I saw on Facebook, and it's about David being concerned about the fact that Sheila doesn't know ASL and that she's not really putting any effort into doing that. And I have words. And it's hard for me to really express these words because this situation is not like if two Americans who met even in different states, or an American and Canadian even, because Canada uses ASL except for Quebec. This is different than two Americans, two neighbors meeting and falling in love with each other, right? Sheila is from the Philippines. English is not even her first language. So when she's trying to translate her native language into English and then now she's going to have to translate into ASL, that can be complicated. I will say this though, for the love of all things holy, please don't get into dating or into a relationship with a deaf person who signs and not put any effort into learning sign language to at least try to bridge the communication gap with them. It's not about getting all of it done in 1 month. I don't know why the interpreter said learning ASL only takes a month. It's not about you need to get this done in a month. It's not about you need to get all of this done in a year and become fluent. It is about putting in the effort to, it's about at least meeting halfway so you can try to make the most successful communication possible. Relationships rely heavily on communication, which is why the relationship with my last ex was an absolute disaster, because he never put in any effort into learning ASL. And so all of the communication from his side was taking his little phone and then typing it on a big app and making me read it. So our conversations took double the amount of time, and really we never just had any real connection because it just doesn't work that way. But of course, taking into account that Sheila's mother had just died and all of that, I understand that she's probably not really thinking about learning a different language and probably isn't going to be able to focus so much on that. But here's one of the comments that kept bothering me just a little bit, and I blame this not on the people specifically, but society as a whole, and especially entertainment. One of the most common comments in the comments was, why can't David just learn how to lip read? Can't David lip read? Anything along the lines of that. No! David cannot simply just lip read like a magical unicorn as if he has like this magical superpower. Lip reading is not a superpower that deaf people just automatically have. Yes, there are deaf people who are actually pretty decent at lip reading. Sue Thomas is famous for like being this great lip reader, and that's how she got her job with the FBI. There's a whole show based on her, and I've seen some of it. Some of us are okay, and then some of us are completely terrible at it. The only reason now that I'm better at it than I was before is because now I have hearing aids, but without them, the only person I would be able to lip read are my parents, because I grew up with them for 30 years, so. But everybody else, it's like, every once in a while, yes, I know what you're gonna say, or I know what you said because it's a phrase that I've seen over and over and over, and I usually can figure out the context, but generally, lip reading is just, it's not accessible. It is less reliable than somebody trying to learn sign language. So when you Google statistics for lip reading, only 30 to 40% of the English language can be easily read on the lips, and even then, you still have to factor in what's going on. Is the lighting great? Is there background music happening? If the person is completely profoundly deaf and can't hear a damn thing, then the music doesn't matter. But if it's someone who is like moderate to severe, has some residual hearing and things like that, having music be in the background definitely makes things difficult, even for me with my hearing aids in, because hearing aids and cochlear implant hearing are not the same as natural hearing. So pulling the lip reading card is putting in all the pressure on David, who has already grown up with all of that pressure. David wasn't born and he didn't wake up saying, yo, I'm gonna be deaf for all of my life, so here we go. Sheila, however, chose to be in a relationship with a deaf man. You know full well that this person communicates with sign language, and that, yeah, it's probably going to be a decent idea to start learning, and you were talking for 2 years and all of that. But again, here's where it gets more complicated. I don't know the ASL resources in the Philippines. Yeah, you can go online, but again, cultural differences and all of these things make this a little bit more complicated. From what I have seen in video, Sheila does seem to like David. I mean, she seems very sweet and all of that. I did see the clip where she was like, we're gonna need a different interpreter who is not a woman if we're gonna keep doing this. To that I say, forego the interpreter and learn ASL. I don't know how many ASL interpreters are around in the Philippines. I have no idea. David himself, from what I've seen, just feels very awkward for me, so it's kind of hard to watch him. I'm not gonna lie. Then again, watching this show in general makes me feel a lot of secondhand embarrassment. But Sheila seems pretty nice. You know, the people in the comments that watching seem to be rooting for them, and obviously Sheila is going through a really hard time with the loss of her mother, and that's something to take into account. And I don't know, I love to see a deaf and hearing relationship work out at the end of the day, because the deaf dating pool is small, and usually if you're single, good luck, because everybody's already dating each other if you haven't found somebody already. And, you know, living in a predominantly hearing world, dating is stressful enough. Dating is stressful enough if it's a hearing and hearing relationship. Now you add a disabled, non-disabled relationship, a deaf and hearing relationship, that gets even more complicated. It gets even more stressful because you are having to wonder, is my non-disabled partner going to put in the effort to be aware of what things are accessible, what are not? Are they going to be an ally? Are they going to stand up for me when that happens? And it's the same, you know, specifically with deafness. Are they going to be an ally to deaf people? Are they going to be involved in deaf culture, in the deaf community? If that deaf person is involved in that, hey, if I'm going to events, is my partner going to come with me? And of course that usually requires knowing a little bit of ASL or sign language in general. Otherwise it's going to get very awkward very fast, because I know I don't want to babysit my hearing boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife or whatever, babysitting them at this event where they're going to be so confused, because that's not fun. Because I know what it's like to be on that end, where if I'm with a partner's entire family, they're all hearing, it's Christmas dinner, it's Thanksgiving dinner, whatever, and they're all having a grand time at the table, in the living room, whatever, and I'm sitting there like, oh god, I have no idea what is going on. So the language barriers are not fun for anybody, and they're not fair to anybody. So what I'm hoping here is that these two will, you know, work it out better, come up with an understanding. I know from what I saw in one clip that David was planning to propose to Sheila, and I'm gonna be honest, I wouldn't be doing that. I wouldn't be doing that yet until there's like more effort being put into ASL, because it's one thing to be in a relationship with somebody and you're not engaged yet, and they're not putting in the effort, or they can't put in the effort for, you know, this and that and whatever. But when you're engaged, that adds even more stress. It's not marriage yet, at least there's that, but yes, admittedly, I'm a little bit scorned still from past experiences, but yeah, so we're talking about like two different topics into one here. But yeah, at the end of the day, I'm gonna say this: if you meet a deaf person and you know that signing is a big part of them, and you know that you can't put in the effort, or you don't want to put in the effort, I wouldn't get involved with that person to begin with, because it's not going to be fun for anybody. It's not going to be fun for the hearing person, because they're going to hate that they keep being badgered, if you will, about learning ASL or not learning ASL, and then resentment is going to come in. And then the deaf person, it's not going to be fun for them, because they're putting in so much work to try to bridge the communication gap, and we get so tired, it's physically painful, etc., etc. It's just overall not fun for anybody, so just keep that in mind, which is a lot easier to do if it's an American and American, or at least you all speak the same spoken language or written language. 90 Day Fiance makes this a lot more difficult, because too many countries are involved and different cultures, and I think it's wonderful when people from different countries get together and, you know, all of that, sharing cultures and things like that, but it doesn't make it any less complicated when it comes to stuff like this, because it's already an added layer of complication when it's two hearing people from different countries having a language barrier. The one I remember right off the bat is whoever the woman was, and I think Marcel, was that the guy's name, from Turkey, and he was flying, or he flew over, obviously, because this was regular 90 Day Fiance, I think. They had to constantly use Google Translate on the phone, and let's be honest here, nobody was really learning each other's language here. The lady wasn't really learning Turkish, and I can't remember Marcel really learning more English either. I think he was putting in more effort than she was putting in to learning Turkish, but that's like, that already makes things harder when it comes to communication, right? But both of them are hearing, whereas David isn't, so with David that adds another layer of complication. I hope Sheila and David work this out and they come up with a good solution. I hope Sheila heals from all the crap that's been going on, and then she can focus on learning ASL, and then, you know, those two can be happy together. But also, it's important to know that, no, David can't just magically lip read. People being like, why didn't you learn lip reading at the deaf school? Listen, I never went to a deaf school. I went to mainstream school, public schools, regular, whatever, right? But something tells me that you're not learning how to lip read in deaf schools. I don't know. Whoever went to deaf institutions and stuff, let me know, because is that something that's in the curriculum? Anyhow, someone hire me to do a speaking engagement so I can travel, so I can go watch 90 Day Fiance at a hotel and carry on my tradition. I'm slightly kidding. But if you would like to support the work that I do, since we pretty much wrapped up that nonsensical babbling, I do have a Patreon page. So for as low as $1 a month, you get access to exclusive things, newsletters, updates to what's going on with work and stuff. But the higher pledge that you have, the more that you get. So behind the scenes with YouTube stuff, writing, things like that, that's always very much appreciated. But also, if you don't want to make the monthly commitment, I understand. There is a super thanks down here. It's like YouTube's tip jar, so if you want to do a one-time tip deal, that's also very much appreciated, because then that's part of my YouTube check, so I can't complain. If you have not yet subscribed, be sure to do so. Hit the notification bell, because it is Deaf Awareness Month. So with that being said, if you have anything that you would like me to talk about, anything you want to know about, feel free to leave those requests down below in the comments. Thank you for taking time out of your day to watch this video. I very much appreciate it, and I will see you later.